Hello and welcome to the Winter Disco channel. In this video we're looking at the latest rules for playing the Lumineth Realm-Lords in Warcry as featured in White Dwarf issue 454. We're going to check out the rules for the models and the warband as well as the campaign as the Lumineth search for the lost magical artifact. So this video has a bit of a structure to it. First we're going to go over an overview of just generally the warband and what we're going to have in this video. We'll look at the many leaders you can choose from, the fighters. We'll check out the extensive list of abilities, and then we'll go into the campaign as the Lumineth search for a lost magical artifact. And then we'll go into the actual artifacts of power and command traits that the warband can gain through the campaign. Straight off the bat, the Lumineth get 11 different units to play with, and this gives you more options when it comes to unit selection. When compared to, say, to one of the Warcry warbands, such as the Unmade, which has 5 options, the 11 that the Lumineth get really allows you to cater to most, if not all, situations your warband may find itself in. This means you can really drill down into the specific unit choices. With the number of models available, you get a lot of variation in the unit types. From the hard-hitting Stone Guard, which can not only take a bit of punishment when using their Mountain Stance ability, but can deal out some hard-hitting damage as well, to the fast-moving Steedmaster and Dawn Rider with a huge 10-inch movement, which when combined with the Lances of Dawn ability, you can do a lot of damage at once. Then we have the Alarith Stone Mage, also having options up their sleeves. With a mid-range attack, they can do a lot of damage and access to the Gravitic Redirection ability that can be devastating if used at the right time. Points-wise, the Lumineth range from 75 to 205. This puts it in the mid-range of points when compared to other warbands. But since there are so many units at the varying points cost, you do get the luxury of being able to put together a list in a variety of different ways. You get the option of 6 different leaders, with each of them taking a different role and access to a different ability. From this you can build a warband based around a specific unit and unique ability. For example, the Cenari Calathar, while not having the greatest stat line for a leader, can unleash an emotional transference ability to take advantage of a damage-friendly fighter, and then use that damage against an enemy. Or their Alarith Stone Mage, who is dangerous at mid-range, but can use the extremely powerful Gravitic Redirection. I'm going to go into the abilities in detail shortly, but let's look at some of the other units first. If you need speed, the Steedmaster and Dawn Rider have a move of 10 inches, so you can get around the battlefield fairly quickly. And with the triple ability Lances of Dawn, you can get some extra damage in once the move is finished. While the units aren't cheap, they do give you that ability to react to a situation on the other side of the board extremely quickly. The Venari Oralan Sentinels provide the long range of the warband. They don't do a lot of damage, but at 75 points they come in as the cheapest unit. They also have access to the Shining Company ability, which gives you an aura around a model to reduce incoming attacks. And the best way to use this would be to group up 2 or more to take advantage of the buff and then shoot from afar. The Alarith Stone Guard are a strong unit that can deal out damage, but at the same time mitigate incoming damage. With their Mountain Stance ability, they can reduce damage by 1 from each hit. Since this lasts the entire battle round and then coupled with their 12 wounds, it can make a difference between having these units in and getting the hard damage done, or losing them early on in the game before they can really do anything. Let's move on and look at the abilities that are available to the Lumineth Realm-Lords. Shining Company gives a group of models some extra armor by lowering the attack characteristics of enemies attacking them. It doesn't cover a huge range, it's only 1 inch, but it's a nice buff to have if your units are bunched up. Mountain Stance reduces damage of every hit and critical hit by 1, so this can be very powerful when used in a tight spot. As it lasts the entire battle round, I can see this being a really effective ability when a single model is targeted by multiple enemies. Moonfire Flask is available to the High Warden and does a few points of damage at mid-range. You do have to roll well to get the damage in, but if you roll a 6 you do damage equal to the value of the dice. So in a perfect world, you would use this with double 6s and then roll 2 6s on the dice, dealing a total of 12 damage. Highly unlikely, but statistically you're usually going to get at least 1 damage out of it. So I don't think this is hugely effective, but it could be useful in a tight spot if you need a unit to get 1 or 2 damage in at range. The Sharp Eyes Scryhawk lets the High Sentinel target an enemy at some distance, and every attack against that enemy gets a +1. This would be effective if you can get a few attacks off on that enemy, and with a range of 20 inches and it only being a double ability, you should be able to trigger this a few times in a game. I would say it is better than Moonfire Flask in its consistency, but a few things have to fall into place for it to work well. And now for the triples. First up, we have Lances of Dawn. These are exclusive to the Steedmaster and the Venari Dawn Rider, simulating them charging into battle. At the end of the unit's movement, they can deal damage equal to the value of the ability. This may or may not do a lot of damage, but it is a little extra, and depending on what you roll, could be the difference between winning a small skirmish or losing it. I like how it is tied to the Rider's units for 2 reasons. The first being it gives incentive to move your Rider units around the battle And secondly, it feels very thematic. While the ability is for any movement made, I can imagine it being used at the full 10 inches and the unit charging in to save the day. Cenari Kalathar gets access to emotional transference. I love how this uses the damage taken by a model and then applying that to an enemy. It ties in with how the unit works in the lore, using the sadness and depressing emotions against an enemy. So with transference, you pick a friendly model that has taken damage, then pick an enemy model, roll dice equal to how much damage the friendly model has taken, and then roll dice to apply it to the enemy. If played correctly, it could be a game changer and swing the battle to your side. I can see it being used with a Venari Dawnrider that is down to 1 wound, and then rolling the 17 dice to do damage. Its range is also big, with essentially giving the Kalathar a 24-inch or so range with the ability. The downside is it does require close attention and careful planning to get the units in the right place at the right time, but the damage potential can be massive. The final ability is the Quad, which is the Gravatic Redirection. Only the Alarith Stone Mage can use this ability, but it makes perfect sense for this mage. All visible enemy fighters within 6 inches take D3 damage, and then their move is harmed for the rest of the round. While that might seem a little weak compared to emotional transference, this ability gives you time for your other units to get in and fight. You could use this ability to set up a trap to tie enemy fighters down and then bring in the heavy hitters to clean up. Since the enemies can't move that far, it's easy fodder for the more long-range models, so the Aurelian Sentinels can attack from range and the Dawn Riders can charge in. I love the thematic nature of the abilities, and it ties into the strong martial prowess of the Lumineth, but also the mastery over the different magics. The Lumineth Realm-Lords campaign focuses on your warband searching for an ancient artifact that was stolen from them. As you play, you gain the usual glory points that you gain in a campaign, but you get to spend them on summoning geomatic sigils. The Lumineth seek to save the realms through the use of precise Hishian spellcraft, conjuring forth vast arcane symbols of ordered light magic to repel the taint of chaos. And for every one you raise, you gain 50 points to spend on your warband. These are the usual rules for territories, although the Lumineth cannot include thralls like the Warcry warbands can. Even though every warband can do this territory action, I like how it is thematic to the warband itself, and that they're fighting against the darkness. The first convergence battle, the Lay of the Land, begins as you attempt to scry and attune yourself to the stolen artifact. The victory condition for the ritual is to essentially keep away the enemy until you get enough points to win. While it is thematically correct for the narrative, it can be problematic since you're relying on dice rolls. You could roll extremely poorly, and if you can't keep the enemies away at all, you end up with no points. Or you could roll straight 6s and keep the enemies at bay, possibly ending the game on the second turn. Deployment-wise, you are defending, so you can create a ring around the object or the ritual location to protect it from the attackers. With careful placement, it shouldn't be too difficult to keep the attackers at bay, but like I said, you are reliant on the dice rolls rolling in your favour. I can see this being a challenge purely for the aspect of luck or bad luck. Heavy-handed diplomacy is the second convergence, and it takes the Lumineth to a trading post to forcefully interrogate a warband at the bazaar. The map layout is a structure resembling a building, so it feels like you are fighting in some kind of settlement or lost structure. All the models are deployed at the start of the battle on the long edges, so there is time for maneuvering to get into the right position. It's going to be a pitched battle, with a victory condition of no mercy being a straight-up bloodfest, with each warband trying to kill each other, or at least half the opponent, before the other. There is a little protection for both sides, and meeting in the middle is more than likely going to happen. The final convergence is Radiant Ruin. Here the Lumineth have discovered the relic is in the hands of Gorston Loreza, an outcast elf with a motivation to use the magical powers of the relic. In a last-minute rush, you have to get into Loreza's lair to stop him from unleashing the magics. Deployment-wise, it's a random draw, but the map itself is very open, so not restricted. Victory card-wise, using the gauntlet, it is tied into the narrative theme of your warband getting into the lair by establishing an edge of the board of where the lair is. So depending on which deployment card is drawn, it could have a big effect on the strategy and tactics to get to the designated board edge. Unlike the other convergence games, this one includes a twist, Eager for the Fight, which gives a fighter +1 movement. While this allows the Lumineth to get to the lair faster, the opponent also gets the same buff, so we're going to be hot on your tail. Obviously, taking Dawn Riders is going to work really well since they will have an 11-inch movement in the game, while the Stone Guard may slow you down with their lowly movement of 4 inches. If you are successful in this final convergence, you have been able to stop Loreza and their ritual from unleashing the cataclysmic magics, and after their defeat, you can take that artifact, which is called the Moonfire Diadem. This gives you a once per battle bonus action to deal d6 damage to every enemy within 3 inches of a fighter with that artifact. It's free damage and in an area of effect as well, so it's nothing to be sniffed at. As with the other campaigns, your warband gains extra artifacts and command traits as they play. These two tables show off what you can find in your journey. So for artifacts of power, You can pick up the Aether Quartz Reserve, which allows you to use the Rush or Onslaught ability without using any ability dice. It's essentially a free action. You get the Cloak of the Cenari, which adds +1 toughness, and then you also have the Diamond Forge Chris, which gives you +2 strength to an attack. Command traits, we have Taunting Arrogance. When an enemy fighter within 1 inch of this fighter targets this fighter with an attack action, allocate 1 damage point of that fighter for each rolled hit of 1 from that attack action. So it's punishing any people that attack you, and I really do like that, particularly because it's Taunting Arrogance, and it's very much in line with how the Lumineth are. Then we have Veteran of the Yakari Dara, so they get an extra 5 wounds, which in Warcry can be really strong, depending on who you're fighting against. And finally, the last trait is the Speed of Light. You add 1 to the movement characteristic of this fighter. And 1 movement is pretty good in any case, but I can imagine putting that on the Steed Master, just to give them that extra little bit of range. I like the Lumineth Warband. They are extremely thematic with their abilities and have a range of options when it comes to units. They do rely on careful placement, as the abilities are reliant on fighters being at the right place at the right time for them to be really effective, but after a few games you should be able to figure out the best strategies for that. The options of units allows you to play this warband in a variety of different ways, so playing with them shouldn't become a chore if you take them to match play or tournaments, since the different leaders open up different options and ways to play. I love the narrative aspect of the campaign as well, with the Lumineth hunting down a stolen artifact, and it gives this sense of desperation in trying to find it. So what do you think? What is your favorite ability? Leave a comment below and let's chat about it. For me, it is definitely the emotional transference. I do really like that. I just love that idea of taking the pain and sadness of one model and then sending it off to an enemy. If you have liked this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. I'm planning to go through all the warbands for Warcry in this format, so you can expect some more videos like this. So thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.